Hi, I'm Dr. Carla Fisher, Provost of the Maricopa Community Colleges District. Welcome to a New Media Lab Experience documentary.
Our documentary will highlight the importance of native seed revitalization. Therefore, we believe revitalization is the understanding of the past to benefit the future. This will bring awareness to how important native seeds are to Arizona and to our tribes. The primary focus of our documentary is the revitalization of corn and squash seeds. Both of these seeds have significant religious and cultural meaning among the tribes throughout the Southwest. Our research will include Pima Maricopa traditional farming techniques and the historical construction of the Phoenix Canal system that was designed by the Hohokam peoples of Arizona. These canals are currently being used to irrigate agricultural fields and bring usable water to the people living throughout the Southwest. Another point we will cover is the storing of seeds and how it has changed significantly over the years. As a solution, we can use seed banks to help preserve seeds that are going extinct. Along with our academic research, we will film and interview MCC's horticultural faculty and traditional Pima Maricopa farmers in order to gain a better understanding of seed revitalization.
The culture of native seeds has changed very dramatically throughout early culture and modern culture. Native Americans first relied on foods that were indigenous to their region. Early culture of native seeds has gone back thousands of years. The Native American tribes, as part of their culture, have many traditions as to how they plant their seeds, how they take care of them, and how they restore them, and many more cultural traditions. Native seeds and crops also have a significant role in their religion, food, music, arts, and many more. In the early years of planting, Native American cultures would plant the seeds very differently than how it is done now in modern times. In their culture, it was normal for them to use tools that were made from stone, animal bone, tortoise shells, and other helpful and strong materials that they could possibly use. The Native American used everyday items such to make their important farming tools for them. As for early religion, most to all the tribes have celebrations and religious ceremonies at the beginning of the harvest season. Native Americans like to celebrate the harvest and all come together to have a feast, listening to music together, singing, and dance. Secondly, 60% of all the food that is eaten across the world was originated and developed by the American Indians.
We're so excited to have you here today. My name is Stephanie. I'm going to be asking you questions. If you just want to start off by stating your name and a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Larry Robinson, and I'm from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. I grew up there part-time, but also my dad is from Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and spent some time there. My great-grandmother taught me about the seeds and stuff like that. And my grandmother on my mother's side was always had a large garden that we worked in every year for food that we ate. Corn and tomatoes, chilies, and all that.
How important was that agriculture when you were growing up?
How important was it? It was really important to us because we didn't have much money when I was growing up. So, and it was very traditional for us to raise our own crops, and that's what we did. Most of the people in our neighborhood had a garden of sorts, you know, to grow certain vegetables and beans.
Is there any type of traditions incorporated with agriculture in your communities?
Yes, there was always dancing when harvest time came, and planting time was always a call to the community to come and help each others in what we were doing by raising our own vegetables and food. And a lot of times the men went jackrabbit hunting, and I used to go with the men. And one of the things that I used to do was I had an uncle that would strap all the jackrabbits that he killed around my waistline, and sometimes it was really heavy to carry those jackrabbits.
Now that you've seen the sort of agriculture in the gardens change, like how have the traditions changed?
Well, when land lease started to become thing to do with the land, and farmers from the outside, the community, started farming the land, that slowly kind of went away. And it really came back full circle when people started to realize that they weren't getting enough nutrients in their diet. And so that's when people really looked at the lima beans. I'm going to say a Pima word here, the autumn howard, and that's a lima bean that the Pimas also developed in cross planting with other beans. So that was a favorite of mine because it was a brown lima bean, and nobody does that anymore today.
How important is it, in your opinion, for the youth of your community to keep the old traditions of agriculture alive?
We've tried that in our community with students from the local high school, and it was really successful, but the management of it and the interest of it kind of faded away. And individual families today, if they want to raise a garden, they'll do it. The river was everything to the community because the river was the source of the water that we needed in order to grow our own food and a resource for people who raised livestock. Because if we didn't have that river flowing through our reservation, the livestock suffered. We used to go take all our horses in the morning to get water, drink water out of the Salt River when it was flowing, and to this day it's not. It's a landfill that took the place of the river that used to flow through there.
How important was the corn that you grew from your gardens?
It was the source of life, for us, because we could make all kinds of foods for ourselves and mix it with vegetables that was grown, in these gardens that when I was growing up. My great-great-grandmother always had a garden, and she was a very traditional woman, and she was the one that raised me.
What was the importance of the seeds that you used to grow in these gardens?
I think the most important part for me was the traditional lima bean and the beans that we raised, and the other thing is a natural resource that the desert provided, like the mesquite beans. Nobody ever cooks the mesquite beans, and also the prickly pears from the cactus, and things like that. That was a variable source of eating, and people don't do that anymore.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because of the fact that financial prosperity came to the reservation and people start to lose the cultural identity that we had. A lot of people still don't know how to speak the language. The 20th century finally caught up with the reservation at that time because people started driving automobiles and stuff like that. And my grandfather still had a horse-drawn wagon. We raised horses, and my grandmother still made the gardens, and my grandfather still did the alfalfa fields and the maize fields that we had, until he couldn't do it anymore. And by that time, I was leaving home.
Today, more than ever, native seeds are being forgotten and genetically modified crops are being introduced. With the increasing popularity of genetically modified crops comes the endangerment of native seeds. According to Winona LaDuke, 3/4 of all the crop varieties that existed before the 20th century are extinct. Different organizations know that preserving native seeds is essential and are taking action. One of these organizations would be America's largest non-governmental seed bank, Seed Savers Exchange. After working for over 35 years, they have conserved over 25,000 varieties of unique vegetables, fruits, and grasses. A different organization that should be mentioned is the Cultural Conservancy. Based in San Francisco, they apply their traditional knowledge of food and farming practices in urban landscapes. But what projects are being used in northern Minnesota, tribe members and local farmers have worked together and created the White Earth Land Recovery Project. These local farmers grow out 5 or 6 varieties adapted for the region. By producing more corn varieties, these farmers are also increasing the different types of corn found in their local grocery store. A different project created in New York by the Oneida tribe would be Three Sisters. This program was developed with the goal of boosting the tribe's development through farms that grow and sell white corn products. The outcome of this project was that it reintroduced the 1,400-year-old Iroquois corn into the diet of the local natives. It's time for Arizona to take part in revitalizing the local seeds by creating different organizations and projects similar to those mentioned.
With native seed revitalization, individuals should lean towards traditional aspects of native farming thinking, one being the Three Sisters. The Three Sisters are 3 main crops that Native American tribes have planted together in a harvest: corn, squash, and beans. The concept of companion planting, in which one plant helps the other, is the basic idea behind the Three Sisters. But focusing on this alone glosses over many of the nuances in native garden traditions. The forgotten system tribes once used would lessen the hassle of farming without using excessive chemicals to ruin crops or the environment. Using hills of corn to serve as poles for beans and interplanting with squash to keep down invasive weeds is as much about compatibility and harnessing nature to do part of the work as it is the study. Adding on to this concept, this farming technique keeps communities in touch with their identities of preserving the earth and nature. The Three Sisters system has helped support a culture whose people have used land without destroying it. This method of farming is not meant for large-scale farming, but can be learned from and help produce better agriculture areas for communities. Systems such as the Three Sisters and companion planting bring spiritual appreciation towards the efforts of growing staple crops and revitalizes native seeds.
My name is Peter Condon. I am the Director of Sustainable Agriculture and Landscape Horticulture at Mesa Community College. Some of the courses that I teach are Introductory to Plant Biology, and then some greenhouse and nursery courses like greenhouse management, plant propagation, plant identification, etc. Boy, if it wasn't for native seeds, we wouldn't have any seeds, because all plants, even the flowers that we grow in the nursery or the food that we buy at the store, all started with wild plants. Over the years, we collected the seeds. Traditionally, we would collect the seeds from the best fruit, from the largest fruit or the most tasty fruit, and then we would combine those with other fruits, and I'm talking about pollen and crossing with our hands, and we get better and better seeds, like the seeds I'm holding in my hand, which are probably dozens of generations old.
How do you think it is that these seeds from native tribes go extinct?
Oh boy, a seed goes extinct because people stop caring about it. And seeds come from plants. If plants are just left by the wayside, or if people think we have to use the modern plants because they're the way to go, then we forget the traditional ways, we forget the traditional plants and the value of the traditional plants. And so basically forgetting about something. That's like people too. If we forget about people, if we forget about our past, they're just going to disappear and we'll never remember them. The same thing with seeds. The native seed, or the seeds that people first started to use for their food. And then we got, in our opinion, better and better seeds. They're better adapted to soils, or better adapted to pests. And then we got way out of control. And now we're telling the seeds to produce their own toxins to kill pests. And the little old guys in my hand, that we always have to go back to the native seed if we want to reintroduce, say, disease resistance or tolerance of different soil and climate types. If we don't have the native seeds to go back to, we've lost them forever. The fact that this seed is in my hand, and this seed may have been started 1,000 years ago or longer, says that this seed has in all those genes that may not even be expressed, some of them do, it has insect resistance. So the corn earworm, or whatever else affects beans and squash, This seed is pretty good at deterring that insect. Otherwise, we wouldn't still have it anymore. Plants need companions, and plants grow in nature in relationship with each other. They help each other. It's been shown that companion plants can add flavor, and they get insect resistance to the other plants. So knowing what plants should grow together, in addition to just the seeds of interest, that's going to help you to have a much better harvest.
In our documentary, we're talking a lot about corn and squash. Why is it so important to preserve those kind of seeds?
It's the staple of native diets for generations and generations. And plus, it grows here. Because we live in a pretty harsh climate, if you haven't noticed. It's a really mild spring, but it's going to get hot. And just when it starts getting the hottest, that's when people start to plant. And what grows really well and what people know how to grow is corn, beans, and squash. And with those three, it provides a balanced diet.
How are the canals that were made by the native tribes, how do they help rejuvenate our native seeds?
The Hohokam developed this system of canals coming from the rivers. The Salt River, the Verde River, etc., the Colorado River, because there's no water down here. So they said, gee, there's water up there, let's get it down here. So they did amazing things. They dug by hand huge canals and took that water down to the flatlands where we live here. Other people moved into the area, colonists moved into the area, saw the system and said, wow, you know, this is a pretty good idea. So they expanded it, and then the Central Arizona Project came about. So we still use some of the original canals that the indigenous people carved out by hand. And that's, if you ever dug a hole in Arizona, oh my goodness, it is so hard to do. So, but that brought food to where food couldn't grow before. People would plant seeds starting pretty soon in coordination or in time with the monsoon. You would plant seeds, you would have a big festival because they're getting ready to grow some food that's going to get them through the next year, and then the rains come. But traditionally, harvest festivals were another big thing, is the food's coming in. We planted it, had a big festival, we prayed for help that these crops would grow. Now we're thankful for the harvest.
Have you ever heard of GIS technology?
Yes, I have. The GIS technology is fascinating. Some people think all technology is bad. Technology developed because we have to work really hard. And before we had GIS technology, we would have to walk through the fields and we would have to look at each individual plant to see if it's stressed, if it's healthy, if there are insects. With GIS technology, using satellite information, we can zoom right in on a particular field, and if we can incorporate GIS technology on a proper level, keeping it in its place as a tool into traditional food production methods, that would really help a lot.
Native American tribes have always stuck to what nature has given them. They are people of nature and have always respected their land because it has helped them live and survive. Over the years, lands started changing and climates became different. This has led to some problems within agriculture. Native American communities are having to resolve the problem of seed rejuvenation, and it all has to do with the neglect of agriculture in the recent years. A new form of technology that will help improve agriculture is GIS technology. Mixing modern technology could help bring older traditions back because the technology will establish a well-nourished area to plant, introducing agriculture back to these communities. The book, entitled Community Participation and Geographical Information Systems, edited by William J. Craig, Trevor M. Harris, and Daniel Weiner, states that the Geographical Data Service Center originally offered a variety of GIS implementation services to tribes. Native American tribes can use these modern technologies to improve the way they grow their food and try to revitalize seeds and the traditional ways of agriculture. The GDSC will help train the Bureau of Indian Affairs on this technology. This resolution to the native seed rejuvenation issue has been implemented in tribes already and has had a great deal of success.